Hey everybody, it's Connor recording from the wintry, snow-packed Alabama tundra that is my house. So this is the Ridley Scott episode. I say Ridley Scott and not Gladiator 2 because Kellen wanted to talk about Ridley Scott. He didn't want to talk so much about Gladiator 2 other than to use it as a jumping off point for talking about Ridley Scott as a director overall. So this is the Ridley Scott episode. That's all I'm going to say. I hope you enjoy it. Stay warm. All right, Kellen, I wanted to give you a platform tonight because we were talking about something else, and you have a bone to pick with Ridley Scott, or Ridley Scott, latter-day Ridley Scott, at least.
And I'm gonna try to be succinct because I've ranted about this stuff with it. Like I'll be like, "Oh, friend of mine, you haven't heard me rant about this," and every time I rant, it gets better.
Okay.
And more succinct.
Your thoughts get more organized.
And the reason why I think it's so tied to what I was talking about.
Kellen's just going to go, he bad.
He bad.
He bad.
It's more about like what a director or a large name in the industry should do with that power and mythos around them. Like, No single filmmaker is a monolith. And what I think gets, and I'm going to tie this back into Ridley Scott, what I think gets lost in a decades-long successful career is checks and balances that happens in the creative process. The thing that comes to mind is what happened with the Star Wars prequels when George Lucas was given more control. And if you know anything about the original Star Wars, it wasn't called A New Hope, but at the time, but like that was not George Lucas doing George Lucas. That was George Lucas being a poor new director in a industry that wanted to beat the shit out of him. And like it was a story of adversity. And so if I can succinctly use Gladiator 2 as my means of talking about whatever the hell happened to Ridley Scott, I think that if you put that a little bow on what I just said, I think that applies to Ridley Scott in the latter years of his career.
So are we Trojan horsing a Ridley Scott dissection into a Gladiator 2 review, or are we do I need to pull a trailer for this, or are we just talking about Ridley Scott?
I'm going to use Gladiator 2 to talk about a lot of my issues with him. Okay, well let's say then that we're talking about Gladiator 2, sort of.
I remember that day. I never forgot it. That a slave could take revenge against an emperor.
Where were you born?
I don't know. I never knew a mother nor a father.
You will be my instrument.
Who are you?
Did you hear that crowd? The greatest temple Rome ever built. The Colosseum. Because this is what they believe in. Power.
General Acacius, there are victories yet still to come.
Rome has so many subjects. She must feed them.
They can eat war.
The arena turns slaves into gladiators, the gladiators into free men.
You have something in you. I knew it from the start.
Did you now?
Rage. That rage is your gift.
This is about survival! Survive! Hold together, and when the charges break for the wall.
Whose head could I give you that would satisfy this fury?
The entire Roman armies.
Too much?
The general will do.
Rome must fall.
Directed by Ridley Scott, screenplay by David Scarpa, starring Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, weird, Joseph Quinn, Derek Jacobi, Connie Nielsen, and Denzel Washington. And this is the sequel to the much beloved film that came out 25 years ago, Gladiator. Which,
and can I just say, why do we need a sequel to this?
Well, Kellen, why do we?
You didn't, and you shouldn't. And
someone looked at this and said that history continued, so there's other stories. I mean,
no. Have you read what the original draft of a Gladiator 2 was going to be?
Mm-mm.
All right, I'll give this right back to you, Kellen. But this is verifiable. Originally, after the success of Gladiator, they were working on a Gladiator 2.
Oh yeah, and June 2001.
Oh, wasn't he going to be like in the afterworld or afterlife or something?
So he like goes to Mount Olympus or whatever, and they're like, "You are a fine warrior. You will now go back to Earth as an immortal." And so he goes back to Earth, and they Forrest Gump him into all of these historic events, and it turns out that Maximus is like going, "Hey, I'm fighting in World War II today," and then like it goes all the way up to like present day, which, you know, early 2000s, whatever, and he's like in the War on Terror or whatever, and it's like it's just that was going to be the thing. He was going to Forrest Gump into every historical event.
It turns into the title sequence for the X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I was going to say it's exactly that, but way worse, it's awful.
I will say that would have effectively been a very terrible movie.
Yeah.
There's no way to make that concept good. Just gonna throw that out there.
Okay. So, point of contention. Number one. I just get the sense that Ridley Scott does not care about writing. I don't think he has a care for a quality script. Even the success of Gladiator, I did watch the original Gladiator. That film was found in the shooting. It's shocking. I watched like a documentary or a behind the scenes kind of thing about it. It went through a ton of writers, and then essentially like Russell Crowe was a very strong voice and proponent for like changing the dialogue and being like, it's almost like, hey, if you are cast as this character, it is your job to like find the character and fix the script. And so like, I'm sorry, a successful director shouldn't go to shooting with a shooting schedule and all this crap without a fucking solid script.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't think he deserves any of the credit for the story and the delivery and the lines or anything from the original Gladiator. The like monologuing and stuff that Russell Crowe does, I know that he, up and down changed all that stuff. I think one of the more quotable lines of his, I can't remember which one it is or something, is something he came up with off the cuff or something. So as a legacy, Gladiator is not really setting up the story to be like the story around these productions as a Ridley Scott success story. I'm kind of blanking on like his catalog of films, between that and like The Martian, which, in our text message we were talking
That's
about.
That's right.
I find The Martian to be one of my favorite things he's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because what chops he has is more on the visual side and like exciting action sequences and stuff like that. And when you've got a story that, like The Martian was like that, like popularized reading again, like for a little bit, like, you know what I mean?
It's a great book.
And I know you like Andy Weir. Stuff.
I read Project Hail Mary. That's also going to be a film next year. So I'm excited for that.
So that film, I really enjoyed the film. I read the book. The things that I took issue with it were the weird changes in character. Some of the tech was like, I don't know. The things that I didn't like seemed like things that he probably was responsible for. if you want to get upset about race changes and stuff in the film, like an Indian guy was a black guy in the film, and then a Korean female scientist at JPL or whatever was turned into a white woman. So all that stuff, and they kept her name. Her name is Park, and I was like,
yeah,
it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
So you get to Gladiator 2, and what I'm talking about is that directors, they get so successful. I just feel like there's just yes men all around them. Gladiator 2 story. Gladiator 1, if I wanted to pick it apart, it's not historically accurate. I love Roman history.
Yeah.
You can do such awesome stuff with the cast of characters in Roman history because they are as ridiculous and extravagant as you imagine.
Yes.
But they just choose not to. Gladiator is like, cool, we're going to take like two aspects of Commodus as an emperor, which was he involved himself in fights in the arena. And it was because he was never really like a proponent or a prominent like war general or anything like that.
Yeah.
His father, Marcus Aurelius, lost what I was trying to say there.
He was involved in constant conflicts. So like he spent a good portion of his imperial run on the front lines in wars and stuff.
And so then he came back, and basically when he was in power, he wanted to play at that again. That's still.
Yeah, Commodus was like, I don't have nothing fun to do.
I don't mind historical fiction. I don't mind tweaking something. The reason why I think Gladiator was fine, it's almost like the end of Inglourious Bastards, where Adolf Hitler gets shot in the face with a machine gun. Like, cool. That's historical fiction now, because like we are in the realm of this isn't the timeline. So like Gladiator being a little tight film that basically is like, what if a gladiator who, granted was a prominent general or whatever, like killed the emperor and like changed the history as we know, like that's not how it happened.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. And I gave it a lot of like, anyway, the second one is let's just run with history doesn't matter. Ridley Scott said in an interview, basically, like, I don't want to hear anybody talking to me about historical accuracy because, like, were you there, mate? And I'm like, fuck you.
Were you?
That's like,
as if we can't know history.
I know. Oh God, as if we don't literally have like written like. We have factual information about how these things went down. You can find amazing stories.
Picture it didn't happen, Kellen.
Did he deny COVID? Was he like, I don't know. Were you in China, mate? I wasn't. What did it happen? I don't know.
Essentially, like, what does that say to me? Big fucking ego does not want anybody to check him.
Question him. Yeah.
Or like, even if I don't think it's ineptitude. I think it's he, for some reason, as a creator, thinks it doesn't matter. And like, I'm fine with a little bit of deviation there. And there's some stuff later. Like, I don't even hate the inaccuracies of the film as much as the actual larger issues with it. I do have an interesting take on what I think a story for Gladiator 2 should have been, and I'll save that for later.
Okay.
But so I just don't think he cares about story. I don't think anybody. Sorry,
I get the impression that he's going through the motions somewhat. Like he's fallen too much into the business side of movie making, where he just knows he needs to deliver something to a studio, and that his name being on it does something, and is not that concerned with quality at this point. Like, he's sort of coasting now. Yeah,
I also think he's an aged director who. Some of them, push back against the CG revolution and what computer generated imagery can like do for a film. And he's one that just, like George Lucas, like leans wholeheartedly into it, but not in the responsible and like interesting pioneer way that like James Cameron does. So to me, what that means is that boarding or kind of just visualization of the shooting of the film does not feel inspired because of how many shortcuts were taken. Like, I think working with adversity and challenge and a budget and stuff like that, and keeping all that in mind, is basically what makes directing fun. And when you've got all the money in the world because a studio throws it at you, you come up with CG shot after CG shot after CG shot.
Yeah.
You don't stage anything in an interesting way. You stage it in the obvious way. And that's kind of how I would describe the shot direction in the film. Nothing ever surprised me. I can't think of a single shot. Not to say that there wasn't anything impressive in the film, but a couple months on, can't remember anything prominent from the film. Anyway.
Well, can I jump in? Because I agree with you, Callan. I think that Ridley Scott is a fine director in terms of staging, in terms of composition, whatever. But story is not his strong suit. And I would point to the proof of this being, if we look at his filmography as a director, right? Like going back to Alien or whatever, Alien's great. Blade Runner is good, but like the story is not all there for me. Like it's close, but that's a very atmospheric film, and I think that's what it's remembered for. And then like Thelma and Louise is Thelma and Louise, right? G.I. Jane is G.I. Jane. But like Gladiator hits, and you've already outlined for us that Gladiator was the product of the filming and the editing. Hannibal is based on a book. Black Hawk Down is based on a book. It's like Robin Hood obviously is based on Robin Hood. Prometheus was not good story-wise, right? I would
literally say Prometheus is kind of the onus of the problem for him, is that that's his jam. That's the thing he has control over. Yes. And you remember when that film came? I'm sure we talked about it at the time, but like I got out of that film and I was pissed off. Like, but it had nothing to do with the visuals of the film. Like, there was a lot of good stuff going on, but it was tied together with the stupidest story and the most heinous characterizations of what are supposed to be like genius scientists on a anyway.
Just sort of just poking at black goo without any sort of safety protocol. Like, maybe we shouldn't touch this foreign substance.
And so to me,
what's the worst that could happen?
An IP that he not owns, you know what I mean, but like that's his jam, and he can't even get that right. And it like anyway.
Well, but see, and I never saw Alien Covenant, but I understand it's much the same way. Like it's that same committed sort of thing. Yeah. But like continue down his list, right? Like Exodus, Gods and Kings, that's biblical. The Martians, based on a book, right? It's like all of these things are pulled from history or from novels, and I don't think that he himself is out there grabbing these stories and going like, this is great, I'm going to put my own thing, like my own spin on it. It's like, if it succeeds, it's because whatever it is pulled from was already successful or was already known or already had fans, right? And otherwise it's being remembered for atmosphere, it's being remembered for tone, it's being remembered for visuals, it's being remembered for action. That's like Black Hawk Down, right? Like everybody remembers the things that happen, but not really what's happening. And I think that's proof of the pudding, right? Like
And honestly, the biggest issue with this, granted what you said about a potential Gladiator 2, like that's heinous and atrocious and should never be committed to film ever. I would put this, with the time gap in productions, what was it, 23 years or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I would put this in soft reboot territory. The story is, I'm not even kidding you. It is basically take the story of the original and just twist the knob of like surreality and bizarre overacting up a bit, but the beats are the same. Lucius, even if he's the kid from the prior film, there's no connection with like his character as that kid in the prior film. Like
whoa. You didn't know this? Kid, I did not know this.
Oh, Dustin. Okay, I'm going to have to get more in depth with this than I thought I was going to have to. So, Lucius is the kid that is the Marcus Aurelius' daughter had an affair with Maximus. Mm-hmm. Had that kid.
Yep.
But that's secret. Basically, her dead husband, everybody thinks that's his son. That kid, after Commodus gets killed, and basically there's like a power vacuum. Like this is.
Wait a second. Is this? Sorry, I have to ask. Is the whole affair thing? Is that part of Gladiator?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I forgot that whole.
It's
implied.
Extremely heavily implied.
Oh, I just.
So Lucius is his gladiator's son. Lucius is Maximus' son. So the story in this film essentially is when Commodus is killed and there's a power vacuum, his mom sends him away because basically like that kid can't be emperor at that age. And he would basically like whoever wants throne would probably try to kill him. So he gets sent away and then like he gets like lost, like essentially whoever his adoptive family or wherever he went to live, like he gets some warlords run in and he basically gets separated and stranded and he makes his way in life. He knows that he is Lucius and is heir to the throne. But he just like, I'm going to be, he just becomes Maximus. He becomes like a respected member of like a Numidian tribe in North Africa. He takes a wife. The Roman Empire attacks them. And so it's a reversal. The Roman Empire comes and attacks his Numidian settlement and kills his wife. He has sees his wife in the River Styx afterlife moment. And then like everything he does in the film is to avenge her. It's just like Maximus and his family. He gets captured by the Roman Empire and brought back, and they notice that he's a fighter, so he becomes a gladiator. And then his benefactor is Denzel Washington, who the best performance in the film, and you are like he's a bit kind of brutal and stuff like, but you're basically on his side, and then the movie like goes like, oh, he was the villain all along. And you're like, but this is the only person I even like in this film. And they want him to be the big bad. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so if you mix on top of it, like a little bit more attention paid to the politicking and stuff and like the sentiment of the citizenry and stuff like that. Instead of one crazy emperor, there's two crazy emperors. One is just like a little crazy, and the other one is literally like dying from syphilis or something, and his brain is addled by it, and like so he's literally insane and has like a pet monkey that he wants to make consul. It's like it's batshit, it's crazy, and it's just so weird to me as someone who finds actual Roman history so over the top sometimes. Like, it can be really hard to believe some of the history that you read. And you're like, that would make an amazing story. So, okay, before I talk about what I think Gladiator 2 should be, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Dustin
Weldon, Hoopercast. Quick question for you. So this Lucius character, is this who Paul Mescal's playing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they didn't get the original kid, the Unbreakable kid. Okay. Is Connie Nielsen back?
She is.
Is that his mom?
Yes, Lucilla.
Yeah. And she's back and somehow has lost all acting ability. I shit you not. And it's either she just was never a good actor, which I know that's not true.
No.
But all she was given in this film was to look forlorn and cry. And
it's probably, I'm so checked out right now.
I'm not even kidding you guys. I was so pissed and tired watching this film. I don't remember exactly what happened, but 20 minutes into the film, I was watching with my buddy Jan. He and I, something happened on screen and we both, unprompted, we just looked at each other and like gave each other this like our shoulders fell and our just heads rocked forward. And we were like, oh God, we are in for 2 more hours of awful.
Can I also speak to the historical inaccuracy of this, just from stuff that I know already and stuff that I looked at while you guys were talking? Lucius,
I've got mine. Lucius
Verus is Marcus Aurelius's adoptive brother. So they just slapped his name. Like Lucius, okay, fine, but Lucius Verus, like they gave him that name. I just thought that was interesting. Lucius Verus, so Lucilla, the mother of this Lucius, the Connie Nielsen, she's the wife. So Lucius Verus was Marcus Aurelius's brother. He gives him half of the power of the empire when he becomes emperor, just to sort of delegate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That guy marries his daughter Lucilla. So already she's like married to her uncle, and then names her kid after him. yeah, this is all. I'm looking at all these names and like these two emperors, these co-emperors, Geta and Caracalla.
Caracalla, yeah.
They are emperors like 5 or 6 generations down the line from Commodus. It's not like 15 years later they were. It's just taking histories and just kicking it in the groin.
And their story would have been really interesting. Like I can imagine like a very deep character study about two brothers like ruling the Roman Empire. And like, do you know what what is it? Something Memento Mori? No, the opposite of that. Essentially like Caracalla killed his brother Geta and struck him from historic record as best as possible. If you find like plaster, the hell am I trying to say? Mosaics and stuff, like his face has been scratched out from them and stuff. And like, we have information about him, obviously, so we know he existed, but like,
it's like a 7th grader's yearbook.
Yeah. So, and again, like emperors, like there's like, it's really interesting to like read about them because like they're the most documented, historic figures that we have of the time, like by far.
Dude.
And so we have tons of information about them.
I'm going to recommend a book to you, Kellen. We don't do this very much on the Hoopercast, but there's a book called Dying Every Day by a guy named James Romm. And it's about this philosopher named Seneca as he was like working in Nero's court and how like slowly he realized like, fuck, this is bad. And try to figure out like, should I get out? Should I try to still influence things from the inside? And then like,
this is my jam.
Nero keeps like killing his family members. And it's like, okay, what can I do? And then like, it's actually a really good book. But okay. All that to say, like these people were fucking crazy. Like these were the most unquestionably the most powerful people in the world who had all of this unchecked power basically. And so of course,
much like Ridley Scott.
Snap.
Absolutely. And of course, when you give someone like that power, they just go, how can I do whatever the fuck I want?
Whatever's best
the
for
most.
me.
Yeah.
The House of Gucci.
Past all of like the actual, wider criticism of him and stuff. I again, this budget it had to have been over 200 million.
It was.
It's ridiculous. Listen to this.
380.
I have two different numbers here. What do you have?
You go. I don't know off the top of my head. I remember reading that it had to make $1 billion to be profitable.
The Wikipedia says 310 million for the gross and 210 for the net, whatever that means. Who has a net budget? I don't know, but it only made it didn't even make half $1 billion at the box office. So it's.
I thought it super performed well.
I mean, it made a lot of money, but
yeah. So you're right. What I'm remembering is it is $310 million. Add to that another roughly $300 million for marketing.
$300 million for marketing?
They usually say to double. So this is, but they don't release those numbers, so it's all questionable. Now, where that money went, I don't know, because this thing was poorly marketed. So maybe add like 100 million, right?
YouTube ads.
But I remember reading an article that was like, okay, if we do $310 million plus the marketing budget, this thing, in order to be a success, it's going to have to make $1 billion.
Well,
why would you do that to your own film?
Everything you said just really hurt me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's another one. Don't do that. Don't make a movie with that much money.
Keep your wallet closed.
Yep. Because if you can't oh my God. A number of dollars does not equal quality. And all that does is like, in an industry that is so allergic to risk, that's the product that gets made with that much money. It's so embarrassing. A better movie would be made on a smaller budget because smarter decisions have to get made, or you're fucked.
I will say part of that budget was because of the strikes. I think they were hemorrhaging money. It was like $500,000 or $600,000 a week that they were spending during that strike just to keep production up and afloat. So part of that production budget is that, right? It's allocated to that. I don't know how much that total is. I mean, it could be, I don't know how many weeks the strike was, but I mean, it can't be that much, but still 10% of the full amount, but like still crazy. Probably less than 10%.
I knew it had to be stupid and expensive and stupid and expensive.
Yes.
I just wasn't aware of how expensive. So Ridley Scott made a movie that thinks you're stupid, expects you to be stupid, and therefore has to treat you like you're stupid. So any idiot on the planet knows that this takes place in ancient Rome. Maybe they're a little bit less of an idiot and they know that Rome is in Italy. Maybe they're, or modern day Italy. Maybe they're a lot, they know that Latin is a language and that not everybody, can read Latin.
Right.
So like there's stuff in the environment that has Latin on it. Like, it's texture for the most part. You don't need to be able to read it. And the movie is basically like, characters are speaking English. We understand that that's probably, that's not what they were speaking. We get it. Mm-hmm. So all of the stuff around is accurately depicting Latin, whether they did their research or not. Whatever. Enough for me to not be upset about anything. So this movie has to ham-fistedly tell you that, like, remember Maximus? Remember him? We have like a weird grotto under the Colosseum with a shrine to him with his armor and his sword, like in the Colosseum. No, that's stupid. Don't know why that has to be in the Colosseum. And okay, so he walks up to this so stupid, like it's like what would a kid write for a scene that was about like Maximus's legacy? His armor on the wall and his sword, and his son is having a moment where he gets his sword. Cool, whatever, really stupid. I'd forgive it. But as he walks up, written above the armor in English, carved into the rock, it says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity."
Oh.
Painfully stupid, painfully hand-fisted, written in English. So the movie's going, hey, fucking idiot, you're too stupid. Granted, okay, actually, no, not you're too stupid. If this was in Latin, you wouldn't know what it was saying. Okay, but we want to make it in English so people can read it. But we're also going to have Paul Mescal's character literally say that line. He reads it off the wall and he says it. And so therefore I go, well, then why wasn't it just in Latin? And then he says it and does the work for you. It's still stupid that he's doing it. But at least it's not written in English where we've never seen English depicted anywhere in this universe. Yeah. And I laughed out loud when I saw English carved into this wall in the film. And I was like, this movie thinks you are fucking brain dead. You are a stupid husk of a sentient creature. And you're so dumb that we're going to put this as a member berry, but also in English because we don't want you getting confused at all or having to think. And that was the worst one. And then there's the rest of it is basically like different levels of, do you know anything about history? Like, hey, you guys, when did the printing press get made? Like, what do you think? Maybe like the 1400s, right? Something like that. Gutenberg.
Uh-huh.
Okay. How about a scene where Denzel Washington goes and meets a senator at a cafe that might be serving coffee, which literally didn't exist, but most people don't know that. Like that coffee didn't exist in the Roman Empire at that time. It was very much like, I think, a Southern Asian sort of thing. Whatever. Guess what that senator is doing at a questionably coffee shop? Maybe they're drinking wine. He's literally reading a newspaper. He is reading folded up paper with printed Latin on it.
Is he doing a crossword puzzle?
He might as well. He's literally like using it like, oh my God.
He's scrolling.
let me check what X has to say today.
I couldn't believe it. Because that
Wow.
one's so egregious. Like, I would hope most people will go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Ah.
especially people who know scripture and stuff like that, to know that like illuminated manuscripts and everything, like that was a huge thing because they had to copy that shit by hand. Like
Correct.
holy cow, I was so pissed.
Wow.
And then the rest of it is like, this is, I think about 100 or so years into the history of the Colosseum. Like, it is not a new, the Flavian Amphitheater is not new. The only time that they might have had submerged like aquatic battles was before they built the substructure, and it was just a floor. But I think, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years into the history of the Colosseum, they carved out the underspace, and that's where you get all those gadgets to raise animals into the amphitheater and stuff, which was definitely a thing. But in this movie, they we've heard that they had some like aquatic battles, so fuck it, let's just do it, even though it's 238 or whatever the heck year it is.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out when that started, but I remember that. I know that was a thing.
That's inaccurate. And then two, there's like, if they had any creatures in the water for these types of things, it would have been like saltwater crocodiles and things like that. They put sharks in there, and sharks are very, very difficult to transport, even in modern.
I was just say, how did they get them there?
Because sharks literally have to like swim they have to be swimming all the time to get their gills oxygenated. And so even in modern times, you have to like over oxygenate water to transport sharks. I didn't know this element, but I literally they didn't have sharks in there. And so I'm just picturing like some ancient technology apparently lost that allowed them to transfer sharks into the Colosseum. Anyway,
Aliens.
The film ends with Paul Mescal killing Denzel Washington and stopping the Praetorian Guard from fighting the loyalist like Roman army on like a battlefield outside of Rome. And literally like that would require a lot of like communicating who these people are fighting. We're armies marching at each other, and then like two guys run into the middle of the battle and fight, and then suddenly all the armies go, "Yay, we don't have to fight each other!" And like, so if the first movie fucked up history by like killing Commodus and establishing like this weird power vacuum, this one is literally like, no, we straight up killed these two emperors. And then this bad guy who was behind all of it is now dead, and Paul Mescal's still alive. And the movie acts like he's gonna be the emperor. And so I'm like, man, if they do a Gladiator 3, I think maybe this is just his way, Ridley Scott's way of saying, well, now I really don't have to give a shit about history because I just butchered it all to the point where like you can't even get back onto the normal continuity anyway.
Wow.
So it was just so bad.
Wow.
So bad.
Just so bad. Okay, we're running long, and I know I've been talking basically this whole time, but I do have a really interesting idea for a Gladiator film. And actually, if and when, I'm done working on the pitch of ours, Dustin, like I have another idea for an animated series, and it is based on this same story from the Roman Empire.
Okay.
And the reason why it's interesting is, one, it has gladiators prominently. Two, it has nothing to do with the same story beats as Gladiator the film. So in Roman history, there are a lot of periods of times where there's contention for the throne of the empire. There's like the year of the 5 emperors, or year of the whatever emperor. There's multiple instances of this. And then like, I think it's like 238 or something like that. There's contention between like 3 different people for the throne. And the broader story is kind of convoluted, and like you have to know like governors and stuff of like different regions and things like that. So basically there's like Game of Thrones level stuff happening for the throne.
It was 238. You're right.
I was right.
Yep.
And the guy who comes out on top is amazing. His name is the main name that I always think of is Thrax, Thrax. He literally has gigantism, and he's like 6'7". and his hands are gigantic, and he's basically described as like this like monstrously huge guy. And he becomes emperor, and he essentially just goes off and like he's like a wartime emperor. He doesn't stay in Rome ever, and he's off doing his thing, and it causes like this power struggle in Rome where these two consulates or something like that basically like band together and say like, well, we're just going to say fuck that guy, he's not the emperor anymore, and throw everything into flux. And so what happens is, so like if you picture like the Secret Service of the Roman Empire was called the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah.
And they are basically like, imagine if the Secret Service was also like, we're also gonna kind of be another pillar of government in the form of like brutality.
Yeah.
And so the Praetorian Guard looks after itself a lot. So in this power struggle, they basically started confronting these like senators, but not on Throx's account. It was basically like, well, if you guys are going to steal a piece of the pie, we're going to steal a piece of the pie. And so this huge struggle between senators, the citizenry of Rome, and the Praetorian Guard. It's like a three-pronged thing. And like horrible fires start taking root in Rome and like burning like a third of the city down. And the people are like fighting the Praetorian Guard. And this awesome thing that happens is the people release all of the gladiators to fight the Praetorian Guard. And essentially there's a citywide battle between citizens and gladiators against the Praetorian Guard. And they basically like put them under siege. And like, there's just, it's awesome. And it would have been an awesome story to tell about gladiators doing awesome shit and just giving them more of a texture of the Roman Empire. And anyway, long story short, all gladiators basically get murdered and die. And Thrax is killed by his own men in the field because they want to go home.
This is the siege of Aquileia.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really, really
Thrax's name was
cool.
Maximinus.
Maximinus Thrax.
Yeah.
Yep. And anyway, so my idea for an animated series is to play fast and loose with that, but purposefully, because Thrax is too awesome of a character to waste in the way that he actually died. And it's just wild. It's like one of the most captivating stories of the Roman Empire, in my opinion.
So there's two problems with that story. One, where are the member berries? That's number one. No nostalgia. Number two, so there's a lot of history that you said there. There, as far as I'm aware, there's no way to tell an audience any of that visually or audibly, even in a film. So how would a dum-dum understand this?
You know, maybe we just don't make it for dum-dums.
Oh, they read it in a newspaper. There it is.
That was a good setup. Extra, read all about it. General Thrax is on the march again.
He has gigantism, everyone.
He's got a hat and knickers on and stuff. And Ridley's got, I don't give a shit. Were you there?
It's fine, whatever.
Were you there, mate?
Were you there, mate?
I didn't know this could have happened.
Someone's using a French press on the coffee there. It's a cafe.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, you picture like I hear like steaming milk in the background, like ADR in or something like that.
Oh, we got a latte for
Charles.
For Maximinus.
Okay. Anyway, end rant.
Well, no, that's far superior to either of the what was I about to say? Either of the gladiator stories that have actually been a thing.
Yeah. This is just a plug specifically for Connor.
Ooh.
My favorite Roman history YouTuber is called Told in Stone. I don't know if you've heard of him. It's like just there's no fluff. It's just a really intelligent guy who, you know, might be on the autism spectrum, the way that he approaches his approach to information and how he dictates it and stuff. He's just, all his stuff is super compelling. It's a lot of like granular things like how did they solve crime? Like, how did they deal with crime? Like, there were no police.
Yeah.
It's like stuff like that. It's like things you never really think about the Roman Empire. And they're like 8-minute videos that kind of go into the history of
Where
it.
did they poop?
That's cool.
In buckets and then dumped it in the street.
Yes, or the nobility had like, it's literally like just a drop. It's like pooping in a dumbwaiter. It just falls like all the way down to like the first floor, and just slop hits the ground, and then someone has to like rake that shit out.
I was watching. I just love history. I was watching a documentary about how like I think they're uncovering like Herculaneum, like one of the cities like Pompeii that got taken out by Vesuvius, and like there's a sewer system for like the rich houses and stuff, and like there's actual like archaeologists in like the excavated sewers, like what a gold mine, we've got rich people's shit. And like it's all desiccated and like it doesn't smell or anything like that, but they're like so happy to be literally digging through 1,000 or 2,000-year-old poop. And they're like, you can see that their diets consisted of such better sustenance and blah, blah. I'm like, yo, dog, you're just like scraping poopy off of an old lead pipe.
How does one find themselves in that line of work? That's my
to be honest with you. I kind of think I could have done that in another life if I was smarter and more diligent. But then I might have had a moment where I'm like, I'm scooping poopy.
You'd be talking on the Pooper Cast right now.
Oh. It's just all about ancient people's poo-poos. Fantastic.
We
Pooper Cast Poopy Hour.
We break down we break down every new study that comes from poop discoveries. New poop alert. New poop alert.
Or we just talk about our poop that day.
That's always the preamble. It's like, hey, so you guys regular? Yeah, while pooping.
We're like, I read a study today. You shouldn't spend more than 10 minutes on a toilet. It really F's with your blood flow to your legs and can cause heart conditions.
Looking at all of our bathrooms, and there's like one of these podcast arms, like clamped to the edge of the tub.
Yes. Explain that to your date. It's like, what is that? You're like,
my poop.
Do you want the truth? Or
there's a tripod set up across from the toilet for the video, and they're like, what the hell are you into?
There are two answers to that question. You don't like
but
either
not
of them.
Poop, but not in the way you think.
Yeah. Waist up or chest up poop.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Poop and chest? All right. Okay. Anyway. Okay. That's Ridley Scott. Okay. Okie dokie. And that was the Ridley Scott episode. So, thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend, and come back and see us next time. Bye-bye.
You are a stupid husk of a sentient creature